Chapter 2285, The Future. Chapter 2285. The future Yi Futian's potential was clear enough to the divine prefecture. But the cultivators from the dark world and empty divine realm, too, could see his potential in the future that awaited him. He possessed various kinds of imperial-level inheritances, all of which were lusted after by many enchanting geniuses. But none could obtain and control them except Yi Futian. Such a stunning figure would be another legend in the making. There was even a chance for him to prove the realm in the supremacy of the way. But today's Yi Futian was still in a period of development, and because he was limited to his own strength, he needed allies. The kind of alliance formed at a time like this would naturally be the most stable. Now, the sword goddess cultivation had reached a bottleneck. After the peak of Renhuang, the crossing of the divine tribulation follows, which would be a real challenge unimaginably difficult to accomplish. Perhaps, Yi Futian may be able to help her in the future. It was an opportunity for Yi Futian, as well as for herself. Thank you, Elder. Yi Futian bowed slightly to the sword goddess. The sword goddess had strong cultivation, and was definitely a powerful ally. I'll talk to the other elders, Yi Futian said again, and the sword goddess nodded. Go, she said. Obviously, she understood that Yi Futian wanted to strengthen the power of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. The original realm used to be nothing, but since its unification under Yi Futian, with the power of Ziwei Segmentum behind him, the original realm was now a mighty force. As it continued to seek allies, the Heavenly Mandate Academy would become stronger still. Compared with other principalities in the Divine Prefecture, the Academy had already surpassed most of them. Even the Domain Chief's manor was no longer a competition, unless it recruited some powerful cultivators who had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. Once such an existence had been produced by the Heavenly Mandate Academy, it would immediately become one of the most powerful principalities in the Divine Prefecture. Furthermore, this was not taking into consideration that teacher from Four Corner Village. If that teacher was included, then the Heavenly Mandate Academy could be regarded as a pinnacle principality. However, the teacher seemed to live outside of this world and had no interest in participating in secular affairs. Even though he made an appearance in that battle in the original realm, it was only for protecting Yi Futian, and he did not demonstrate his full strength. Yi Futian found the Duan family as well. Duan Tianxiong from the ancient royal family of Duan agreed readily enough. He was on Yi Futian's side in that battle, and would never refuse such a request. In addition, he was already quite optimistic about Yi Futian when they were still in the Divine Prefecture. Later, he had witnessed the strength and the cultivation of the teacher from Four Corner Village, coupled with more and more revelations of Yi Futian's enchanting talents. He would obviously never miss an opportunity to form such a powerful alliance with the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Finally, Yi Futian came to Emperor Shi and bowed, saying, Emperor Shi, I heard what you said just now. Do you want me to become an ally of the Academy as well? Emperor Shi smiled and asked Yi Futian. I dare not. Yi Futian shook his head and said, My life was saved by the Elder, or I may very well have already perished in the battle at Donghua Domain. Many of our friends also owed the Elder for sheltering them in their time of needs, so I am in no position to demand anything from you. I only wanted to let you know that the Elder and cultivators from Turtle Deity Island are more than welcome to cultivate at Ziwei Imperial Palace anytime you wish. You can also go to Four Corner Village if you wish. There are some cultivation grounds in the village that may be suitable for Renhuang from Turtle Deity Island. Emperor Shi smiled and nodded. If I have the opportunity, I would also like to visit the teacher in the village, but I don't know if he would see it as a disturbance to his cultivation. If Emperor Shi were to visit in person, the teacher should be willing to receive you, Yi Futian replied. As for Emperor Shi and the Millet Emperor, Yi Futian would not mention anything about the alliance. He had previously cultivated at Wangshan Watchtower, and he owed Emperor Shi his life. So, he wouldn't talk to them about the alliance, because their relationships were different. Moreover, even if he didn't mention it, in time of real crisis, Emperor Shi, the Millet Emperor, and the others would not stand idly by. All of them were there in the last battle, Futian. Emperor Shi looked at Yi Futian and suddenly asked, "You now have comprehended the will of many great emperors, and your understanding is deeper than most, so the speed of your cultivation is much faster than of ordinary people. How many years will it take you to reach the peak of Renhuang?" "Within 20 years, said Yi Futian. 20 years, Emperor Shi nodded. If he could really do it in 20 years, it would be considered extremely fast. With Yi Futian's combat effectiveness, once he stepped into the peak of Renhuang, he would unlikely to find any opponents beneath cultivators of the tribulation level. How about divine tribulations? Emperor Shi asked again. Yi Futian shook his head. I haven't even touched the peak of Renhuang. I have no idea how long it will be for me to cross the divine tribulations. Which level do you think you can reach? Emperor Shi looked at him and asked. When he was crossing the divine tribulation of the great path on Turtle Deity Island, it was fraught with danger. He felt that was already his limit, and his cultivation had reached its limit. He was quite satisfied with his own progress. Even if he stayed at this level, he would still be one of the top cultivators in the world. However, any cultivator would want to go to higher ground and see further, and he was just a few steps away from the highest point. But these couple of steps were insurmountable for the majority of the people. Yi Futian revealed a look of contemplation, as if recalling his youth. He thought of his adoptive father. After having experienced so much, the memories of the past were like a century ago, and had become a little obscured with time. But some things had already been seared inside of him. He was destined for greatness, and he believed in his adoptive father and himself. He knew that in time, he would reach that point. Imperial. Yi Futian looked at Emperor Shi. Emperor Shi looked at Yi Futian's eyes, and saw there was great confidence in the depth of those eyes. With this one word, how many in the world dared to say that they were capable of setting foot in that realm? Even those who had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path dared not to lay so bold a claim. But Yi Futian had bluntly stated that he could get there. Emperor Shi was touched in his heart. This youngster had such unshakable confidence in himself. I can't wait to see it, Emperor Shi said with a smile and some expectations. At this moment, an extremely powerful aura suddenly came upon them, causing Emperor Shi and Yi Futian to end their conversation. They looked far into the distance, and saw that a figure was bathing in an incomparable starry glow under the stars. Above the starry sky, an imperial star was emitting magnificent divine glory. As the imperial star's divine glory descended on that cultivator, terrible changes took place in him, as his aura continued to become stronger. Uncle Tai. Yi Futian had a surprised look on his face, as that cultivator who bathed in divine glory was Blind Tai. An indescribable golden glory burst from Blind Tai, and the shape of the divine hammer could be faintly made out, filled with shocking power. He was covered with golden armor, shining lights streaming all around him. An even more perfect aura now spread out from him. The cultivators in Four Corner Village were looking there as well, feeling quite emotional. Blind Tai was about to make a breakthrough. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2286, Blind Tai's Breakthrough. Chapter 2286, Blind Tai's Breakthrough in the Starry Sky. Many cultivators looked yonder, and their hearts were disturbed. Blind Tai was the first person Yi Futian helped after he communicated with the Imperial Star, and he gave that Imperial Star to Blind Tai. Later, Blind Tai inherited the will of the Imperial Star. Even after everything was over, he often bathed in the Imperial Star to cultivate. Since then he had not stopped cultivating. Now he was about to break through the realm. He was already in Upper Renhuang in the 8th realm. This breakthrough meant that he would step onto the peak of Renhuang, with a perfect great path. It was a leap that would allow him to become a major figure among the giants, shoulder to shoulder with cultivators from many top principalities in the Divine Prefecture. Back then, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, who betrayed and blinded him, was also at the peak of Renhuang. After this step, his cultivation would be equivalent to that of the great elder, and Emoko would no longer be a contender. The breakthrough of Blind Tai also excited so many others. He was also the first person to break through the shackles of the realm in the starry sky world. The event itself held extraordinary significance. This inevitably encouraged the other cultivators to increase their own expectations. No one was happier to see this than old Ma. When he was in the village, Blind Tai had the best relationship with him, and they were very close friends. Even Tai Tu and Xiao Ling were childhood sweethearts. No one understood better than him the pain that Blind Tai had endured over the years. Witnessing this day, old Ma was happy for him, and a bright smile hovered around the corner of his eyes. Next to old Ma were Fang Gai, Gu Huai and some others. This guy was lucky beyond belief, Fang Gai said with a smile. It's not just luck, old Ma said. He was betrayed once upon a time, and when he returned to the village, he almost lost his cultivation. After the teacher cured him, he began to recover his state of mind. For many years, he forged as a blacksmith, cultivating his mind and soul. After so many years, hatred is no longer his only focus. He came out of the village to protect Futian, and because of that, he received this opportunity and the achievement of this day. Perhaps this is all fate. Indeed. Fang Gai smiled and nodded. The luck was true enough. But everything was destined to be this way. Whether it was a coincidence or fate, Blind Tai would become another top cultivator in the village after old Ma. After Blind Tai's breakthrough, apart from the teacher, Four Corner Village would have two giant figures. Not only did they need to keep up, but those youngsters need to grow up quickly. We have to work hard too. Fang Gai smiled and said to those who were around him. Blind Tai had now surpassed him. The person next to him smiled and nodded, looking towards Blind Tai. The divine glory of the imperial star rushed madly into his body as Blind Tai was suspended in midair. The armor on his body seemed to be getting brighter and more radiant. He now resembled a god of war. The aura from his body was constantly increasing in strength. The roar of the great path came from him. It was as if he was resonating with the starry sky. The divine light enveloped the boundless space, seemed to have turned it into a divine body of the great path, blooming with divine glory. This state lasted for quite a while, and was accompanied by the endless radiance that lit up the starry sky. As the divine light on the imperial star was not there, even as Blind Tai was still suspended in the air, his body seemed to have calmed down. The divine light on his body retracted, though his entire body was still as bright as a divine body. He did it. Those cultivators in the starry sky shuddered. After a while, Blind Tai moved his body as his head raised slightly. Although he could not see, his perception had become much sharper. Congratulations! Many cultivators put their hands together and greeted Blind Tai, congratulating him on the breakthrough. He was the first person after Yi Futian to break through the realm in the starry sky world. People from Four Corner Village arrived, and old Ma smiled saying, "Not bad. Blind Tai, now you are much better than us old guys," Fang Gai said with a smile. They were all from Four Corner Village, and they were happy for him. However, after the breakthrough, Blind Tai did not feel too much excitement and appeared rather calm. "Uncle Tai, congratulations." Yi Futian smiled and greeted him as well. Blind Tai turned around, facing where Yi Futian's voice was coming from. "Futian, thank you," he said. His words sounded a bit heavy, but they were from the heart. Yi Futian was sheltered by Four Corner Village, but he had done a lot for the village in return. Today he was able to make a breakthrough because of Yi Futian. "Uncle Tai, don't say that. We are like family. There is no need for thank yous," Yi Futian said with a smile, and Blind Tai nodded emphatically. That's right, the people in Four Corner Village were a family of their own. Although Yi Futian entered the village later, Four Corner Village had already accepted him fully and regarded him as a member of the village. "After your breakthrough, Imoku is probably trembling right now," said Fang Gai. The debt of yesteryears would be accounted for by Blind Tai sooner or later. Now that he had witnessed the peak of Renhuang, he would no doubt seek revenge at some point. How could Blind Tai possibly forget what Imoku and the Demon Cloud clan did back then? A terrible coercive spirit came out of Blind Tai. Imoku was someone he must personally execute. The Demon Cloud clan must be held accountable for what they did to Uncle Tai. However, Uncle Tai has just broken through, and the priority has to be stabilizing the realm. But the power on this imperial star can still be used, Yi Futian said with a smile. Blind Tai nodded. He hadn't lost himself because of the breakthrough. Although in this realm, killing Emoku was not a problem at all for him. The strength of the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was formidable. To kill him, his strength needed to be fortified some more. Uncle Fong, the Demon Cloud clan should still be in the land of the original realm, right? Yi Futian asked Fong Gai, who was next to him. It's possible, Fong Gai nodded. Now that the original realm has gone through such a change, with all the principalities of the Divine Prefecture still there, the Demon Cloud clan probably won't want to leave and may cultivate in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Yi Futian nodded. The power of Heavenly Mandate Academy alone could destroy the Demon Cloud clan outright. But this was Uncle Tai's goal for a long time. He ought to have a chance to accomplish it himself, with them on the side to assist. Uncle Fong, please go back to the academy and have them find out the whereabouts of the Demon Cloud clan. See if they can find out where they are currently, said Yi Futian. No problem, Fong Gai nodded. Now Yi Futian was acting even more like a leader in his demeanor. Fong Gai was delighted to see Yi Futian behave like this. This was the only way he could truly become the leader of a dominant force. The Heavenly Mandate Academy and Four Corner Village were all waiting for him to mature into his role. As formidable as he was, the teacher of the Four Corner Village did not care much for mundane affairs. Fong Gai could see that the village would eventually belong to Yi Futian in the future, and not him or Old Ma. Obviously, Old Ma had nothing to say about Yi Futian other than helping him, as he had done this since the beginning. Blind Tai's breakthrough would only be better for Yi Futian in the future. Coupled with the teacher's protection, some things did not have to be said out loud. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2287, Revenge. Chapter 2287. Revenge. The Central Emperor realm of the 9 Supreme Imperial Realms was still the realm with the most cultivators. Although the Central Emperor realm was now under the rule of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, there were still many principalities from the Divine Prefecture that stayed in the Central Emperor realm to cultivate. The Demon Cloud was also above the Central Emperor realm. In an ancient city inside the Central Emperor realm, the Great Elder of the Demon Cloud was cultivating. In recent days, they had been keeping a low profile. Not only them, but the principalities of the entire Divine Prefecture were now much quieter than before. No one was out looking for trouble. The memory of that battle was fresh in their minds. Not long ago, Yi Futian and the many cultivators under his command had almost wiped out several Renhuang cultivators from one of the top forces in the Dark World. Obviously, the principalities from Divine Prefecture were hesitant to cause any more trouble. Strictly speaking, the Demon Cloud had had some previous entanglements with Yi Futian. When he was comprehending the corpse of Xinjia, the Great Emperor in Shangqing Domain, Emoku was incredibly rude to Yi Futian. Later they had gone to Four Corner Village as well. Therefore, the Demon Cloud would not be causing any waves in the original realm. After all, the original realm was now Yi Futian's territory. However, at this time the Great Elder, who was cultivating, suddenly frowned, and there was a slight sense of unease. It was as if he was agitated. Demonic clouds tumbled and tossed all around him, as his brows knitted tightly together. Suddenly, his eyes opened, and those dark eyes stared into the distance. His expression changed. "Go," the Great Elder of the Demon Cloud said. He disappeared from where he was only to reappear in front of Emoku. With a wave of his hand, a group of his people was taken directly into the void. In an instant, his body rushed straight into the sky, descended high above the firmament. But at the same time, the sky suddenly seemed sealed shut as wisps of terrifying starry divine light descending in glory, turning into a starry light screen, shuttering that corner of the space. A figure appeared high above, and it was Run Huang Chun who had directly locked down this area. The Great Elder of the Demon Cloud stopped and hovered in midair, with Mizurika close behind him. Both of them were powerful cultivators from the demon cloud, and neither of them looked pleased. Ren Huangchen, the tribulation-level cultivator from Ziwei Segmentum, had blocked them in. Looking further ahead, a group of cultivators came in mighty formation. The man in the lead, clad in white and with a head of white hair, was Yi Futian. Next to him was a plainly dressed middle-aged man. Though he could not see, there was an astonishing aura permeating from the man's body. Both the great elder of the demon cloud and Imoku could feel a faint sense of oppression. The man was none other than Blind Tai. Blind Tai couldn't see, but when he stood there, Imoku felt as if someone's stare had bored into his being. The feeling was so clear that he instinctively knew who it was. Even though the man didn't use his eyes, Imoku felt like the sensation was sharper than any stare. You have broken through the realm. Imoku could feel the power from Blind Tai, and the expression on his face was priceless. A long time ago, he had severely injured Blind Tai and wounded his eyes. Not only did Blind Tai recover from such a mortal blow, but now, he had broken the shackles of the realm and set foot on the 9th realm to witness the perfect consummation of the Renhuang realm. This was the realm that he dreamed of, but now, Blind Tai had stepped into this realm before him. He was coming for him. He knew very well why the other man was here, to seek revenge for the past. The great elder of the demon cloud sensed it as well. He stared at Blind Tai and wondered just what kind of chance did he stumble upon to break the shackles of the realm so quickly and set foot on the peak of Renhuang. Was all of this possible because of the starry cultivation court? Blind Tai continued forward as the divine light of the great path burst out from him, and there was unbridled anger in this divine light. He faced Imoku and said, "The time of reckoning has come for what happened before." The moment his voice fell, a terrifying brilliance of the great path shot out from Blind Tai towards every crevice within the starry light screen. Like a god of war, his body seemed to be covered with a layer of golden armor. In the starry sky world, Blind Tai had obtained power from the inheritance of a great emperor. Although it was not from Ziwei the Great himself, this emperor was an imperial-level existence under the command of Ziwei the Great. An infinite and domineering god of war gradually condensed and emerged, appearing high above the sky. Like a true deity, a shocking power erupted from his body, enough to suppress and awe the world and everything inside it. The divine hammer in his hand showed a brilliant and incomparable glory that radiated outward, turning into rounds of light screens that wandered between heaven and earth. Blind Tai took a step forward and stood on high ground. His figure seemed to overlap with the figure of that heavenly deity. At this moment Imoku, who had cultivated with Blind Tai once upon a time, felt an irresistible heavenly might. He stared at the man in the void and realized that this was no longer the brother of yesteryear, but a powerful existence at the peak of Renhuang. The great elder of Demon Cloud moved forward, blocking the place where the divine light had landed. The mighty demonic power on his body was roaring and howling with great menace. An overwhelming demonic shadow seemed to sweep into the sky, contending with that deity in the void, refusing to back down. But at this moment wisps of spatial divine light descended, covering the area where he was at. Another figure appeared in front of the great elder of the demon cloud. It was old Ma. Once, you blinded his eyes and robbed the divine methods of Four Corner Village. Now it's time to settle these transgressions. Let them resolve their differences between them. And don't worry, it's not your turn yet, old Ma said lightly. Divine glory of the space unleashed madly, shrouding the vast void. The great elder of the demon cloud became alert and soared into the sky. However, at the same moment, Blind Tai made his move in the void. That heavenly being, holding the divine hammer of the protector, directly smashing down into the space below. Boom! A dull thud resounded between heaven and earth. A destructive might swept down, blasting below, suppressing an entire land to wipe out everything within it. Watch out! The great elder of the demon cloud shouted. But he was waylaid by old Ma, unable to stop the attack from Blind Tai. Imoku roared, and a demonic double seemed to have materialized, blocking above him. But the instant the divine light fell, the demonic shadow was crushed and pulverized. In the next moment, the force fell on Imoku, penetrating his physical body and his spiritual soul. No. Imoka looked extremely fearful and let out a miserable roar. In the next moment, his body was shattered immediately. It vanished like ash and smoke as his spiritual soul also collapsed. Under the attack of that power, he had no way to stop it at all. Unable to even stop a single blow, he was directly obliterated. His old acquaintance didn't say another word and didn't waste any time. But he was not the only one. In the vicinity, under the sweep of the divine light, all the cultivators from the demon cloud were wiped out, as each and every one of them disappeared, as if they had never existed in the first place. Where the divine light passed, none survived. All were punished by death. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Imoka, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, broke through Old Ma's defenses and looked down at the figure disappearing into thin air. His eyes were bloodshot, and power rolled out from him in violent waves. Imoka, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, broke through Old Ma's defenses and looked down at the figure disappearing into thin air. His eyes were bloodshot, and power rolled out from him in violent waves. Imoka had been slain like this. He had been killed without a chance to react. And it was not only Imoku. Other cultivators of the Demon Cloud clan had been killed by a single attack as well. They had all been slain. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan raised his head and looked up at Blind Tai. His deep, dark eyes were filled to the brim with murderous intent. However, Blind Tai ignored him. This hammer had been his obsession for so many years, but he felt very little joy or appreciation in his heart. He felt only calm. In the past, he and Imoka had been very close and had called each other brothers. But he never would have thought that he was plotting against him. It was only through the divine art of spying that he had saved his own life. For so many years, he had dreamed that he would kill Imoka and get revenge one day. Now he had finally done it. He had resolved a matter that he had held close to his heart. Yi Futian and the others looked at Blind Tai and seemed to sense his state of mind. There was no sorrow there, no joy. Perhaps it was a kind of relief. Fortune and misfortune go hand in hand. If it had not been for the things that had happened back then, he probably would not have returned to the village, and his state of mind would not have been purified. And now, he would not have had the chance to reach the 9th tier of the Renhuang Plain. Everything had been decided by fate. Imoka had wasted his talents scheming back then, doing all that he could. And yet, a single hammer had still frightened him to death. So what did all the time he had spent back then matter in the end? Blind Tai faced towards where the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was. He spat out his words, saying, "Uncle Ma, let me come over there." Old Ma and the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan were facing each other. He nodded when he heard Blind Tai's words, then moved off to the side, opening up a path to let him through. After he stepped aside, Blind Tai and the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan were facing each other. One was above the other people. Terrifying power of the great path was seeping out from both of them. "You were the one behind everything that happened back then. You made Imoka do it," said Blind Tai. His voice was still calm. It was as if he was not too concerned by all of this. It seemed like he just wanted to bring it to an end. Yes, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan admitted openly. Of course they had been his orders. If it had not been for him, how could Imoka have done it? And how could he have succeeded? After all, Blind Tai had been no ordinary figure back then. Blind Tai said no more. He just nodded calmly. Neither of them liked to talk much. They obviously did not need to say very much either. This was a matter of life and death. One of the two of them would definitely die, but the one who would die would probably be the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. With the cultivators around him, he had no way to slay Blind Tai. So the outcome already seemed to be decided. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan would die. Actually, everyone understood that this made sense, including the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. When the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy arrived, along with a person at the tribulation level, how could he hope to kill Blind Tai? Back during the battle of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, you said that the people of the Divine Prefecture were slaughtering each other. But now, you led the Heavenly Mandate Academy in a battle against the Upper Divine Prefecture. Excellent. said the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan coldly. But as he said this, he already felt a little bit timid. They had not even started fighting, and he was already feeling timid. That was why he had said that. Otherwise, the slaughter would have started. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan understood his fate. This was a grudge between you and Four Corner Village. What did the Heavenly Mandate Academy have to do with it? Said old Ma, sweeping his gaze over the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. Back then you ruined his eyes, almost killing him, and stole the divine item of Four Corner Village. What is wrong with us coming to repay our debts now? Why did people from the Heavenly Mandate Academy get involved in this dispute with Four Corner Village? Asked the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, looking up in the curtain of stars in the sky. If it were not for that starry curtain, he would not have to make a last stand here. He could have escaped. Unfortunately for you, I am a member of the village. So, I naturally had the right to get involved in this affair, said Yi Futian, looking at the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan from across the distance. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan looked back at him. Surging demonic power swept out from him, filling the entire vast area with his demonic aura. Whoosh! The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's body suddenly disappeared, transforming into a beam of demonic light that pierced through the air. Yi Futian frowned. He could clearly feel a threatening will. Just as he was preparing to move, a figure descended beside him. It was Runhuang Chen, who was covered in starlight and transformed into a protective light curtain that wrapped around Yi Futian. However, the beam of demonic light shot up into the sky, as if it had changed direction instantaneously, then rushed onward into the high distance. Clearly, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's target was not Yi Futian. That had been a diversion so that he could escape the area. His anger and his murderous intent had been real, but his desire to survive by leaving was even more real. So the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan had not sought revenge. He had sought to flee. Bang! A booming sound split the air as a black hammer appeared up in the air and smashed into the curtain of stars, making cracks. That was naturally the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's attack. He wanted to break open this forbidding power and flee the area that he was imprisoned in. But could he do it? The starlight that was upon Runhuang Chen flashed as he raised his scepter. Suddenly, brilliant starlight shot up straight into the air, repairing the places on the starlight curtain that had been damaged. In a flash, it was as good as new again. The repaired pieces seemed like they were a part of the original. If the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan tried to destroy it, it would be nearly impossible, as the difference in levels was too great. Just then divine light burst forth, flowing between heaven and earth. A mighty divine force descended. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's expression changed as he looked over in that direction, and saw that Blind Tai seemed to have melded with the body of a god. His body was covered in golden armor, and unimaginable divine power was radiating from him. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan could even sense a hint of the aura of a great emperor about him. Boom! A divine hammer fell from the sky, smashing into the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. The terrifying amount of pressure made the space around him freeze. And the elder himself was no different as he sensed this supernatural power. It seems that your combat ability now measures among the greatest, uncle. That is incredible, said Yi Futian as he looked at the divine light. As soon as he said this, the hammer fell again, and monstrous figures appeared in the air. But they could not block this attack. There was another loud booming sound, and the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was sent flying backward. The space where he had been before seemed to split, as the terrifying divine light raged through the air. Blind Tai seemed to have transformed into a god. He continued walking forward, swinging the hammer once again, and slamming it into the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, as smoothly as flowing water. It was simple yet overpowering. He possessed limitless strength. Boom! Another dull boom rang out, and the air seemed to shatter as the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was sent flying once again, blood pouring from his mouth. It seemed like he had been crushed, and had no more power to resist. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2289, Thoughts. Chapter 2289. Thoughts. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was no weakling. On the contrary, he was one of the strongest figures in the Shangqing domain. He dominated his generation. But at that moment, Blind Tai no longer seemed like a Run Huang, who was close to breaking through to the 9th tier. In fact, he seemed like he had already done so many years ago, and had developed his profound powers for a long time. What kind of power had the inheritance of the Imperial Star given him? Boom! Beams of burning divine radiance spread out from the figures of the gods of war up in the air, sweeping out through the heavens and the earth, and covering a vast area. Many arms appeared up in the air. They were the arms of gods. The divine hammer of the protector appeared, and images of divine hammers appeared in all those arms right afterward. It seemed as if each hammer contained unimaginable power. They fell accompanied by divine light. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, the top cultivator of the Demon Cloud clan, could sense a deadly threat. He had a strange feeling. It was like he was not facing Blind Tai, but an actual god. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan had swept away all before him, and had never been in such desperate circumstances before. Someone younger than him had reached his level. Although he had just broken through to this level, he was still able to crush him. He had beaten him from head to toe, and had made it so that he had not even been able to unleash his own power. What kind of humiliation was this? But the current humiliation was nothing. As of right now, his very life was in danger. The area was sealed off, and so he could not escape. He would truly be smashed to death by Blind Tai's hammers here. Boom! The hammers crashed down, and the heavens and the earth shook. It seemed as if everything would be destroyed. There came a great roaring sound from the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's body, as the image of a demon god appeared behind him. Its many demonic arms reached up into the sky. The demonic handprints were incomparably powerful by themselves, and many of the arms held great black divine hammers. They moved away from him, smashing into the air, and causing beams of black light to appear. The golden hammers fell, and the two forces collided together. Infinite divine light exploded outward when they clashed. It seemed as if the earth and the sky would split open. The demonic arms were all shattered wildly as the giant hammer went among them and destroyed everything. Bang! As this attack fell, it seemed as if everything was flattened. The great elder of the Demon Cloud clan was sent flying once again. His aura wavered, and his face had grown pale. His aura of the great path was no longer as sturdy as it had been. But the images of even more divine hammers appeared in the air, covering the sky in all directions. Blind Tai, who had transformed into a form like that of a god, was filled with limitless power. It was like the will of a great emperor had infused his strength. He had transformed into the master of this land. He waved his arms, and the hammers danced once again. His movements were still simple and graceful, but the divine power that burst forth in the air was still enough to shock even the greatest of figures. Countless beams of light all fell towards the same place. The figure of the demonic god tried to block them, but as the light fell, the hammers smashed down as well. Suddenly, the demonic figure split open and shattered. The hammers continued downward and smashed into the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan's body. He was an incredibly powerful figure, and his flesh had already become the way. So even suffering a direct hit from these hammers was not enough to instantly kill him. But his body shook violently, and the hammers kept on coming, slamming into him over and over again. His expression kept changing. It was as if he was full of regret. Then divine light pierced his body. As the countless beams of light shot through him, the great elder's body started to disintegrate until he was destroyed. He had been killed on the spot. After the great elder had been slain, everything seemed to become calm. The violent atmosphere dissipated, and everything was like it had been before. Blind Tai stood calmly up in the sky. He still felt none of the pleasure of his great vengeance. On the outside he looked extremely calm. After a period of silence, he turned and walked calmly over to Yi Futian's side, as if none of what had just transpired had happened. "Congratulations, Uncle Tai," said Yi Futian with a slight smile. Now Blind Tai would be able to let go of his heart's obsession. He, the people of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, and the people of Four Corner Village had all watched this battle, but had not interfered. They had let Blind Tai achieve his own vengeance. And he had succeeded. He had used his overwhelming strength to slaughter the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, Emoku and more, resolving his grudge from many years ago. Old Ma and the others came over, patting Blind Tai on the shoulder. They had been greatly shocked by this battle as well. Even Old Ma had not been able to deal with the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. But Blind Tai had crushed him all by himself. Moreover, the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan had had no power to resist him. He had been overpowered and destroyed. From this, it could be seen that Blind Tai had now become much more powerful than Old Ma. It looked like the inheritance of the Imperial Star was far from ordinary. It had given Blind Tai combat abilities beyond those of people on his level. He had been able to slay the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan, who had been at the peak of the Runhuang Plain for many years. At that moment, the curtain of starlight dissipated. Many cultivators appeared in different places up in the air. They had come from different camps. All of them were top figures from the Divine Prefecture. After sensing the battle that was taking place here, the top figures from the Central Imperial Realm had come to observe the battle. All of them had been shocked by what happened. Blind Tai of Four Corner Village had broken through to the next level. Not only had he done that, but he had killed the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan right out. It seemed like the inheritance of the Imperial Star had given him much. Unfortunately, the cultivation court of Great Emperor Ziwei was already under Yi Futian's control. They could not go there to cultivate. Yi Futian and the others transformed into beams of light and soon disappeared. But the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture did not leave. Instead, they watched down below. One of the top powers of the Shangqing domain had been destroyed like this and would never return. A group of people was gathering together up in the sky. These were cultivators from the Shangqing domain, including Emperor Zhou, the vice chief. In addition, cultivators from the Nanhai family were there too. The Demon Cloud clan had been a top force of the Shangqing domain, and yet it had been destroyed like this. The shock that this gave them was very fierce indeed. Moreover, the one who had destroyed them was Blind Tai of Four Corner Village, and many of the forces of the Shangqing domain had conflicts with Four Corner Village. They had once gone and laid siege to it until they were forced to flee by the master. The cultivators of the Nanhai family were even more conflicted. Now, Yi Futian had led Blind Tai and the others to destroy the Demon Cloud clan. Afterward, would he want to destroy them as well? A group of people from the Muyan family was there as well. They had seen Blind Tai become an even more powerful figure and slay the great elder of the Demon Cloud clan. It was obvious how they felt about this. Muyan Lan had once fought Blind Tai in the Shangqing domain, and their powers had been evenly matched. But now, if Muyan Lan stood before Blind Tai, he would not even be able to withstand a single hammer blow. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2290 Visitors. Chapter 2290. Visitors. After slaying the great elder of Demon Cloud, Yi Futian and the others returned to the Heavenly Mandate Academy. But the incident had caused quite a stir in the original realm. Many top figures from the Central Emperor realm had paid close attention to the battle, and the news spread rapidly. In Heavenly Mandate Academy, Yi Futian and the others had just returned. Before they had a chance to depart to the Ziwei segmentum, they were informed that some visitors had arrived to request a meeting with him. In front of the main hall, Yi Futian scanned with his divine consciousness and saw a group of people outside the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Seeing their presence, Yi Futian frowned. Likewise, Old Ma and Blind Tai also raised their eyebrows. Then, Old Ma huffed contemptuously and said, "What are they doing here? Since they are here already, tell them to come in." Yi Futian didn't seem to care, and gave the instruction casually. Immediately, someone went to carry out the order. After a while, someone came around, and Yi Futian saw that the person was Muyan Long. Behind him was Muyan Lan, but he appeared unenthusiastic. Both of his hands were folded behind him, as he looked toward Yi Futian and Blind Tai. His expression appeared somewhat conflicted. "How dare you show your faces here?" Feng Gai said sarcastically, looking at Muyin Long. All the discords in the past were caused by Muyin Long. Otherwise, they would still be cultivating in the village, and there would be no subsequent events. Muyin Long was full of ambition, wanting to take over the village, even having the idea to replace the teacher. But now, that ambition appeared rather ludicrous. Just Muyin Long alone wanted to replace the teacher? The teacher was the totem of the village, its true spiritual leader. As long as he was there, Four Corner Village would always be what it always had been, and no one would challenge it. In fact, Muyin Long was very embarrassed as well, but he came despite this. He had seen the teacher descended on the land of the original realm, and took control of Xinjia the Great Emperor, erupting with shocking combat power. When some had guessed that the teacher was in the imperial realm, he was greatly shocked, and then taken over by endless regrets. It was ridiculous that they rebelled against Four Corner Village, and left. And even more ridiculous that he had once wanted to replace the teacher in the village. Now they had witnessed Blind Tai's breakthrough, and ascension to the peak of Renhuang. Muyin Long's cultivation was far deeper than Blind Tai's. Even his eldest Muyin Lan, whose cultivation was not beneath that of Blind Tai. In the battle at the Shangqing domain, though he was unable to suppress Blind Tai, the score was pretty even. However, the gap had been widened now. Understandably, he was agitated by how things turned out. If they were still cultivating in the village, the teacher and the imperial star in the starry sky world could be used to communicate and comprehend. But not only did they leave the village, but they had also created this grudge with Yi Futian. The death of the great elder of the demon cloud was a warning to them. Therefore, this trip at this time was inevitable. What if Yi Futian were to seek revenge from them in the future? With the strength that Heavenly Mandate Academy possessed today, even the Nanhai family could ill afford its ire. With Yi Futian's personality, it was a real possibility that he would eventually end up at their front door, seeking revenge. What happened at the beginning was indeed my fault, I admit it. However, we are all people from the village, and belong to the same line after all. No one can dispute this. Old Ma, for the sake of our friendship these many years, would you allow me to ask for forgiveness from the teacher? I am willing to return to the village to cultivate, Muyin Long pleaded, seeking to bolster his request with their relationship once upon a time. However, everyone knew where he was coming from. It was only to seek better resources to cultivate. In addition, he may be scared of Yi Futian at this moment, fearing his tendency to settle old scores. You left when you wanted to, and now you are asking to come back, because you wanted to. What kind of place do you think our village is? Old Ma said quite sarcastically. At that time, Muyin Long and the others had wanted to take Yi Futian down, and had attacked him. Muyin Long's youngest, Muyin Shu, was even more outrageous. He had attempted to deal fatal blows to Blind Tai's son, Tai Tu, without mercy. And Muyin Lan himself was a son-in-law of the Nanhai family. Now he wanted to return to the village? I know we have offended, but we are in the same line after all. If the teacher wants to punish us, we will accept it. In the future, we are willing to listen to all of you, no matter what. Muyin Long still bowed his head, and admitted his past guilt. He had put down his dignity to be allowed to return to the village. Yi Futian looked at Muyin Lan behind him, and saw that he was standing quietly without saying a word. Obviously, it was not his idea to come and own up their guilt, but that he was dragged here by Muyin Long otherwise. Muyin Lan's arrogant nature would never allow him to come here and bow his head like this. After all, even lowering their stance was no guarantee of the results. As if he had detected Yi Futian's gaze, Muyin Lan looked at him as well, and saw that in the depth of Yi Futian's eyes, there was extreme tranquility without the slightest emotion in those eyes of his. It was as if he cared not at all for his existence. The look was familiar enough. Once, this was exactly how he looked at Yi Futian. It was an indifferent and careless look. Now it was Yi Futian who regarded him thusly. Now in Yi Futian's eyes, Muyin Lan was nothing. Aside from the power controlled in Yi Futian's hands, Yi Futian's own combat effectiveness was so strong that Muyin Lan might not be able to contend with him. Yi Futian's sight slowly settled on Muyan Long, and he said, "First, bring Muyan Shu and abolish his cultivation. Show me the sincerity of the Muyan clan." Muyan Long's eyes sharpened as the expression on his face changed suddenly. Not just him, but Muyan Long behind him also regarded Yi Futian with a cold expression. Did he ask them to abolish Muyan Shu's cultivation? How could they possibly agree to it? "Emperor Yi, we are sincerely sorry for what had transpired." "You needn't be so harsh," Muyan Long replied. "I am being quite sincere." Yi Futian looked at Muyan Long. "I won't mention what you did back then, but your youngest, Muyan Shu, being so cruel and plotting at such a tender age, how could we let him back in the village to cultivate without abolishing his cultivation? You don't really think we wanted to raise another you, did you?" Yi Futian's voice was calm enough, but the indifference in his words was very obvious. Clearly it was impossible. "Sorry to have bothered you," Muyan Long said. He turned to leave. "If there is a chance in the future, I will return the visit to the Muyan clan," Yi Futian said casually, causing Muyan Long to stop abruptly. After pausing for a few moments, he started moving again to leave, this time with some heaviness in his footsteps. What Yi Futian said was rather potent with meaning and significance. After Muyan Long left, someone came to report again. "Many forces from the Divine Prefecture are outside asking to be received." Yi Futian's divine consciousness radiated outside of the Heavenly Mandate Academy and saw the arrival of many top forces, which surprised him a little. It seemed that this was all caused by that battle. He never expected Uncle Tai's breakthrough would have such an impact on the top forces in the Divine Prefecture. It appeared that they had some thoughts of their own about this turn of events. After all, it was tough to produce a figure at the giant level. This was already a cultivator standing at the top in Divine Prefecture. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2291, For the Divine Prefecture? Chapter 2291, For the Divine Prefecture? "Everyone welcome," Yi Futian said loudly. His voice reverberated throughout the space. Outside the Heavenly Mandate Academy, several cultivators from various top forces gradually made their way into the academy after they heard his words. They gathered at the main hall. Yi Futian scanned the crowd. There were quite a few familiar faces from some forces of the Shangqing domain. Zhou Muhuang, the vice chief of Domain Chief's Manor, and Princess Zhou Lingxi had come too. Zhou Muhuang looked at Yi Futian, who stood in front of the main hall. He felt that he was fortune's fool. In the past, he intended to recruit Yi Futian when the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor gathered all the talented cultivators. He wanted to keep Yi Futian under the control of the Domain Chief's Manor, so that Yi Futian would be under his command. At that time, Yi Futian was but a Run Huang with extraordinary talent. However, judging from the current situation, Yi Futian's status was no longer beneath his status as the vice chief of the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor. Furthermore, Yi Futian was superior to him. After all, the manor itself was the only force under the direct command of the Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor. On the other hand, the Heavenly Mandate Academy, led by Yi Futian, controlled all the forces in the original realm. The Ziwei segmentum was under his command too. Besides that, all the cultivators from Four Corner Village were willing to follow him. Combining all these forces, it was obvious that Yi Futian was leading a superpower. Moreover, Yi Futian was supported by the mysterious master. Hence, Yi Futian's current status was above that of Zhou Muhuang. When Zhou Muhuang visited the Heavenly Mandate Academy, he needed to wait for the host's approval before he could pay his tribute. Aside from him, all the cultivators from the various top forces of the Divine Prefecture also needed to wait for the approval of Yi Futian to enter the academy this time. No one dared to barge into the place without an invitation. Not long ago, Yi Futian and his team killed many powerful cultivators from the Demon Cloud, including Imoku and the Great Elder of the clan. Even Zhou Muhuang, the ruler of Shangqing Domain Chief's Manor, did not dare to comment much on this matter. Now most likely, nobody in the divine prefecture could command Yi Futian. Not to mention that the matter involved personal vengeance. Outsiders had no stance in the vendetta between the Demon Cloud and Blind Tai. All of you have traveled far to visit the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Please excuse me for not welcoming all of you sooner, Yi Futian said to everyone while bowing slightly. He was polite, and he spoke humbly. However, his humble speech also made people feel distant. Zhou Lingxi, who stood beside Zhou Muhuang, lamented internally. Back then, the domain chief's manor intended to use her to keep Yi Futian around. However, he did not show the slightest interest in her at all. If the domain chief's manor had been more sincere in making friends with Yi Futian, then they would have at least been on good terms with him now. If that were the case, it would most likely not be a problem for their manor to want to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court. After all, the ancient royal family of Duan was already cultivating there at the moment. Ren Huangyi, you're too kind. We've come to ask for a favor, said a top figure. Their attitude toward Yi Futian now had changed completely. Even the giant-level cultivators spoke courteously and dared not act imprudently. After all, Yi Futian now possessed the power to determine whether the giant-level figures lived or died. Oh! Yi Futian raised his brows slightly and asked, what matter is Senior referring to? He was clearly asking an obvious question. Everyone knew that Yi Futian was well aware of their purpose for coming here. We wish to have access to the Starry Cultivation Court for cultivation, said the giant-level figure. Right now, Ren Huangyi has taken charge of the Starry Cultivation Court and can borrow the power of the will of the Great Emperor. If you would allow the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture to cultivate there, the overall abilities of the Divine Prefecture would improve. Your contribution would be significant. Of course, we'll not use the Starry Cultivation Court for free. We will pay an equivalent price in exchange for such access. Ren Huangyi can also name a price. How about it? Yi Futian smiled at the other party and said, Senior, have you opened up the holy land of cultivation of your clan or force to the other forces from the outside world and the Divine Prefecture? I am sure that the members of the other forces will also be willing to pay to do so. Currently, the Starry Cultivation Court was under his control. It was considered to be his personal holy land of cultivation. Why would he allow others to cultivate in it? Yi Futian was not so selfless. He had also allowed all the forces to use the Starry Cultivation Court back during the battle of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. As long as the forces were willing to join the battle and fight for the Heavenly Mandate Academy, they would be permitted to cultivate there at any time. However, none of the major forces were willing to stand out for them. Conversely, they were greedily eyeing the Starry Cultivation Court. All of them wanted to add insult to injury. By killing him and destroying the Heavenly Mandate Academy, they would naturally obtain the teachings of Great Emperor Ziwei and the Starry Cultivation Court. Now that the situation had changed, they wanted permission to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court. Wasn't this too easy? The giant-level figure continued. I understand where Ren Huangyi is coming from. This is indeed a great request. All of us are part of the Divine Prefecture. Now that turmoil is imminent, improving the abilities of the forces of the Divine Prefecture to combat the invasion of outside forces will be considered a great contribution by Ren Huangyi. Moreover, all of us are willing to pay a high price in exchange for such access. The other members also nodded in agreement. In the future, if Ren Huangyi requires any assistance, you will only need to issue the command. The cultivators of the various forces of the Divine Prefecture will willingly provide aid. Wouldn't that be perfect? Someone else added, promising these things. However, if such a time truly came, whether or not the other party would lend their aid remained unclear. Yi Futian smiled. Were they pressuring him to act for the greater good of the Divine Prefecture? All right, replied Yi Futian. When he thought about this, he actually nodded his head and agreed. This stunned the various cultivators. Some of them gave Yi Futian suspicious looks. Yi Futian seemed to have agreed too easily. Although this was their original goal, they never imagined that Yi Futian would agree so readily. Things were likely not as they seemed. As expected, Yi Futian looked at them with a smile and continued saying, Since everyone has requested it, I will naturally not have any objection against the suggestion. Everything is for the sake of the divine prefecture. However, the original realm is also part of the divine prefecture. Since everyone has the same goal in mind, I'm sure all of you have heard of what happened recently. A force from the dark world is committing massacres in the original realm. They have lost their humanity. I am determined to cast the dark world out of the original realm. Are seniors willing to follow me and wage war against the dark world? After Yi Futian said that, he scanned the crowd and concluded, "This is for the greater good of the divine prefecture." The cultivators were stunned when they heard Yi Futian's words. Then all of them fell silent. For the greater good of the divine prefecture? They were definitely not righteous. They were merely serving their own interests. The forces of the dark world were very powerful. Currently, more and more top forces from the dark world were descending upon the original realm. If the cultivators immediately declared war on them, it would be a matter of life or death. It would no longer be as simple as paying a high fee. The price might be their own lives. Hence, no one dared to agree to this so easily. After all, from the last battle, they knew that the Dark Court was cautious of Yi Futian. If the forces from the divine prefecture were to go on the initiative and declare war, the cultivators of the dark world would most likely deal with them first. What's the matter? The forces of the dark world are so cruel. Seniors, don't all of you want to expel them from our lands? Yi Futian continued pressuring them. His manner was imposing. Zhou Muhuang clearly sensed that the current Yi Futian was different from what he was before. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. In the past, even though Yi Futian had extraordinary talents, he was but a Run Huang who had exceptional combat abilities in the divine prefecture. There were plenty of top forces in the divine prefecture. Therefore, no matter how monstrous he was still insignificant. In the past, even though Yi Futian had extraordinary talents, he was but a Run Huang who had exceptional combat abilities in the divine prefecture. There were plenty of top forces in the divine prefecture. Therefore, no matter how monstrous he was still insignificant. However, it was different now. Yi Futian was no longer just an extraordinary talent himself. His background and the forces he commanded were all among the finest. There were not many forces in the divine prefecture who could afford to offend him. Hence, his entire temperament naturally seemed different. Even among the 18 domain chief manners, more than half of them did not command forces as powerful as those below Yi Futian. Only the domain chief manners with chiefs who had survived the second stage of a divine tribulation dared to claim that they could suppress Yi Futian and the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Even then, Four Corner Village still had a mysterious master to hold down the fort. With such a background, even against all the top forces of the divine prefecture, Yi Futian's manner was still imposing. Nevertheless, the crowd knew that Yi Futian had sought the aid of the forces of the divine prefecture during the battle of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Unfortunately, not many of them stood out to lend him aid. Many forces had even tried to kick him when he was down. Under such circumstances, they still came here, seeking Yi Futian for permission to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court. He would naturally not act kindly towards them. Someone said, "Of course, we want to cast the forces of the dark world out too. However, the forces of the dark world are different from the forces in the divine prefecture. They are very united. The Dark Court rules over all the forces in the dark world directly. Recently, more and more top forces from the dark world have arrived in the original realm. Their lineup is as powerful as that of the divine prefecture. It is not that simple to want to chase them out. Before we declare war against them, why don't we unite the forces in the divine prefecture and improve our abilities by cultivating in the Starry Cultivation Court first?" Yi Futian glanced at the person who had spoken. The other party's words sounded reasonable, but in the end, he also wanted to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court first. No one could guarantee what would happen after these cultivators gained the right to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court. "I disagree," Yi Futian refuted. Pardon me for speaking my mind frankly. Last time, when the Heavenly Mandate Academy was attacked, many forces from the Divine Prefecture were also waiting for the chance to join in the attack against me. Most likely, many of you wanted to kill me. I can't tell for sure what everyone is thinking. If I allow all of you to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court, but you end up becoming my enemies, wouldn't I be foolish for inviting trouble upon myself? Since seniors are interested in allying with me, then you should show some sincerity first. Yi Futian's speech caused the cultivators to fall silent. From the looks of it, Yi Futian was firm with his decision. If they wanted to gain access to the Starry Cultivation Court for cultivating, they had to first join forces with him to eradicate the forces of the dark world lurking in the original realm. Otherwise, he would not agree to their request. Last time, when all the forces went to visit Ziwei Imperial Palace in the Ziwei Segmentum together, the latter had no choice but to allow them to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court. However, it was different now with Yi Futian in charge. They would most likely be unable to force him into accepting their request. It was because Master served as a deterrent. Since that's the case, we'll further consider your suggestion, said someone. Clearly, the person thought that the price they had to pay to cultivate in the Starry Cultivation Court was too high. It was not worth it. Hence, the person was giving up. Right at the moment, quite a lot of people arrived. They actually traversed the space and entered into the Heavenly Mandate Academy directly. Naturally, this caused Yi Futian and the cultivators of the academy to frown. The incomers had serious expressions on their faces. They went straight to their respective forces and reported something to their seniors using transmitted thoughts. It seemed like something had happened. Someone also landed beside Yi Futian and told him something using transmitted thoughts. The news caused Yi Futian to narrow his eyes. One by one, the cultivators from the various top forces of the Divine Prefecture saluted their fists and said, "Farewell." After they said this, they immediately flew up to the sky and left. What happened? Lord Taixian revealed a worried expression. The person who just communicated with Yi Futian through transmitted thoughts was a cultivator from Ziwei Imperial Palace. From the looks of it, something had happened. Otherwise, the cultivators from the Divine Prefecture would not have left together. Most likely, they had also received the same news. Many people looked at Yi Futian. Yi Futian said, "In a void space outside of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, someone discovered a relic. According to speculation, it is a very ancient relic." The eyes of the cultivators narrowed when they heard Yi Futian's words. No wonder the visitors from the Divine Prefecture left in a hurry. Clearly, they had received the same news and decided to check out the relic immediately. The original realm was a void space formed after the collapse of the Heavenly Path. It was also called the Void Realm. However, it also became a unique place that consisted of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path and countless void spaces. Nobody knew what lay in these void spaces. Many years ago, people had searched through and plundered the void spaces. Nevertheless, there was bound to be something that they missed. For example, all 9 supreme realms had their secrets. The Ziwei Segmentum, which was sealed by Great Emperor Ziwei, was hidden in the Ziwei realm. The original realm had recently undergone a complete transformation. More and more changes were occurring. Hence, the appearance of an ancient relic didn't seem bizarre. "Do you have the coordinates of the relic?" someone asked. The void space outside of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path was vast and endless. The Ziwei Segmentum, for example, was very far from the 9 realms. Hence, they had to build a powerful grand teleportation matrix to connect the 2 places. The cultivator from Ziwei Imperial Palace replied, "Yes. The relic was discovered by some mighty cultivators from the top forces of the Divine Prefecture. Besides that, it was discovered because it was approaching the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Right now, most likely, a lot of people have caught news of its existence. The forces from the Divine Prefecture that visited the Heavenly Mandate Academy just now were only part of those who had come to the original realm. Many of them are making their way to the relic now." "A moving relic?" Yi Futian nodded and said, "Let's go and have a look." After he said this, the group flew up to the sky right away. The cultivator from Ziwei Imperial Palace led the way, and they left the heavenly mandate realm. They traveled towards a specific direction in the void. After a while, they had left the region where the 9 supreme realms were. As they progressed forward in the void space, Yi Futian and his group could gradually sense an unknown power. The power seemed to contain a faint might. It was as though heavenly might was transmitted across space to where they were. The power became clearer as they approached the space. Even the giant-level figures could feel a super strong pressure acting on them. "This might," exclaimed Lord Taixian. This unknown might gave off the same vibe as when they were cultivating in the starry cultivation court in the Ziwei segmentum. Could it be that this was yet another ancient relic left by a great emperor? As they moved upwards, they discovered that a deep and scary-looking crack had appeared in the sky. A frightening storm formed. The crack was like a terrifying object that would leave marks in the space when it moved. Looking past the crack into the distance, one could faintly sense an extremely menacing power was moving. As expected, it was a moving ancient relic, and it was approaching the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. What exactly was it? It gave off such frightening pressure. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2293, Relic of a Great Emperor? Chapter 2293, Relic of a Great Emperor? Let's go! The cultivators moved towards the direction where the might was emanating from. They traveled across space at an astonishing speed. As they approached the source of the might, they could sense the terrifying might intensifying. Rumbling sounds could faintly be heard in the void space. The massive crack remained in the void as they ventured past it. As various cultivators moved closer and closer to the source of the might, they even discovered dark fissures. "It's over there!" exclaimed someone as they looked ahead in the direction where the terrifying aura was. All the cultivators narrowed their eyes. They saw a gigantic creature moving. There seemed to be a city built on top of the creature's back. It was moving in a specific direction. Everywhere it passed, the space was ripped apart, and dark fissures were formed. When the dark fissures closed up, they became massive cracks. Right at this moment, Yi Futian and his group saw an astonishing divine light of the Great Path light up in front of the moving creature. There was more than one beam of light. Dazzling divine lights of the Great Path were ignited simultaneously in different directions. Then, all the lights pounced onto the gigantic creature, attempting to stop it from moving. Frightening rumbles thundered. The divine lights, which blocked in front of the enormous creature, were shattered into dust. The attack of the cultivators could not stop the creature from advancing. This was not the first time the cultivators tried to stop the creature in its tracks. They had been trying different techniques along the way, but all their attempts were futile. It was unstoppable. "Let's give up on making it stop," someone at the front suggested. The cultivators realized that making the creature stop was an impossible mission. The rest nodded in agreement. Then, the cultivators stepped up and headed towards the city on top of the creature. Since it was impossible to intercept the creature from advancing, they could only get on it to explore the city on its back while it was still moving. Yi Futian and the rest of the cultivators from various forces of the Divine Prefecture also arrived where the creature was. Aside from them, the forces of the Dark World and the Empty Divine Realm also caught news of this relic, and they gradually appeared from various directions. All their gazes were fixed on the gigantic moving creature. Their hearts trembled violently. The moving creature was a black turtle. With high speed, Yi Futian and his group caught up with the creature. They noticed that this creature carrying a city on its back was actually an enormous demonic beast. It was a black turtle. However, its head took the shape of a dragon head. "It's a dragon turtle, but it seems to be dead. It has no aura," commented Ren Huangchun, who was beside Yi Futian. Yi Futian also noticed that the creature was a colossal dragon turtle. However, its body was pitch black, with no signs of life. A mysterious power must be sustaining it for it to be able to keep moving. Not only was this black turtle dead, but the city it carried on its back was also filled with the aura of death. There was no sign of life. However, one could still sense a baffling might emanating from the city. It was an extremely domineering might. Yi Futian had witnessed the abilities of many great emperor-level cultivators, and experienced firsthand the pressure contained within their wills. He was certain that the pressure before him was from the will of a great emperor right now. That meant to say that the moving fortress was a relic left behind by a great emperor. The will of the great emperor might still be lingering in the city. Many other cultivators naturally shared the same speculation as Yi Futian. However, the dragon turtle emanated a mysterious pressure as it advanced while tearing apart the space. There was a solemn pressure acting on the crowd, making it hard for them to breathe. Right at this moment, the dragon turtle suddenly let out a dull groan. It sounded like a sorrowful wail. The reverberation of the sound caused the blood and chi of the cultivators to churn. An intense sadness welled up in their chests. It was as though they could sense the despair in the voice of the dragon turtle. What kind of emotion was that? The hearts of the cultivators trembled violently. This dragon turtle was most likely a black turtle. Such a domineering sacred beast actually let out a groan, which contained such an immense sorrow after it had died. What had actually happened before it died? Buzz. Endless starlight lit up in the heavens and earth, transforming into a starry shroud. The shroud of starlight popped up out of thin air. It was created by Renhuang Chen. He wanted to give it a try and see whether he could block the dragon turtle from advancing. The body of the dragon turtle crashed head-on to the shroud of starlight. Kacha! A shattering sound rang. Without any suspense, the shroud of starlight was shattered into dust. The dragon turtle continued to move forward, as though it had not encountered any hindrance. It seemed as though there was no power great enough to stop its will from advancing. Was it the will of the dragon turtle itself? It looks like we don't need to waste our energy on making it stop. It's unstoppable, concluded Renhuang Chen, who was beside Yi Futian. Renhuang Chen had only tried once, and he was certain about the creature's capability. Yi Futian nodded in agreement. With a flash, he dashed towards the ancient city on the dragon turtle's back. Yi Futian and his group landed on a ruin. They were surrounded by dilapidated pillars and crumbling walls. There was not an area that was in good shape. They could sense a much stronger might now that they were standing on the ruin. Yi Futian had a slight problem breathing normally when pressured by this might. The divine light of the great path flowed around his body, and his emperor's light twinkled, slowly withstanding the mysterious might. After he stabilized himself, his will swept out and scanned the surroundings. What's that? As they looked ahead at the center of the ruin, they saw a tall pile. It was like a tower. The mysterious might emanated from it. All the cultivators from various forces were making their way towards the tall pile. There seemed to be a weak light glowing inside the tower-shaped object. As the cultivators approached it, some of them launched attacks against it. The tower-shaped object shook when the intense attacks landed on it. However, it was not destroyed and still stood firmly. Yet another grating groan of sorrow sounded. The dragon turtle wailed again. The vibration of the sound caused the cultivators to feel restless. Weak light continued to glow on the tower-shaped object, further provoking the curiosity of the cultivators. Let's attack together, suggested someone. Immediately, from various directions, the cultivators worked together to gather a frightening amount of power of the great path. Back down first, Renhuang Chen instructed Yi Futian. Renhuang Chen stood in front of the group, and a defensive light shroud was activated. At the same time, the cultivators once again launched an aggressive attack towards the tower-shaped object. This time, it finally shook violently when many attacks landed on it at the same time. Unable to withstand the vibrations, boulders started falling from the tower. It seemed as though it would crumble at any moment. Many gazes were fixed on the tower. The eyes of some cultivators narrowed in shock when the boulders fell. "Those are," exclaimed someone. After the boulders fell, there were actually human bodies stacked in the tower-shaped object. However, the bodies showed no signs of life. They were corpses. All the bodies in the tower seemed as though they had been here for an eternity. "This is a grave," someone said in a low voice as they looked at the tower-shaped object. Their hearts trembled intensely. A black turtle was moving around in the void space bearing a grave on its back? Whose grave was it? Who was buried inside? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2294, Awakened Corpse. Chapter 2294. Awakened Corpse. Terrifying storms continued to blow past the cultivators. When the black turtle tore apart space, fissures formed, and destructive storms continually surged out from them. The howling storms affected the cultivators. This was the reason why they attempted to stop the dragon turtle from moving just now. Unfortunately, up until now, no one was successful in making it stop. It was as though it had been moving in the vast void space since time immemorial. All the cultivators were shrouded with the divine light of the great path. Their gazes were fixed on the corpses in front of them. Many of the dead bodies were deformed. Some only had tiny sections left. One could imagine the intensity of the battle they were involved in before they perished here. Even on this day, countless years after the battle, the dead black turtle was still wandering in space aimlessly with these dead bodies on its back. Nobody knew where this black turtle was heading. Everyone felt uncomfortable, as they were exposed to the destructive storms. Despite that, they still launched attack after attack at the tower-shaped grave. They were interested in opening up the grave and exploring the secrets hidden within. The powerful might, which instilled fear in everyone, emanated from within it. There might be an emperor-level corpse hidden within the pile. Perhaps the corpse was similar to the body of Xinjia the Great. The black turtle continued to let out sorrowful wails, affecting the cultivators. Right at this moment, a faint aura could be sensed from the tower-shaped grave. The faint light brightened slightly. Then, under the shocking gazes of all the cultivators, the rest of the corpses glowed and started moving. Some of the corpses floated in midair. At this moment, the cultivators who stood on the black turtle felt that they were being watched. It was a peculiar sensation. Before their eyes were indeed lifeless corpses. However, the corpses now gave off a vibe as though they were alive. The situation of the corpses was similar to that of the black turtle. It was undoubtedly dead, but it could continue moving while carrying this ruin on its back. Buzz! The corpses suddenly charged towards the cultivators. All the corpses seemed to have come alive. The eyes of some corpses, which had been closed for a long time, suddenly opened and emitted creepy light. Be careful, Ren Huangchen warned the surrounding cultivators. The gazes of the cultivators from various forces turned serious. These corpses actually moved and pounced on them. Who was controlling them? Accompanying the sorrowful wail of the dragon turtle, the corpses lunged at the cultivators. More than 10 corpses pounced in the direction where Yi Futian and his group were. The speed of the corpses was astonishing. They were practically crashing towards them. A cultivator from Ziwei Imperial Palace, who stood in front, punched the space in front of him. Instantly, starlight circulated and shot outwards. The corpses crashed head-on into the starlight. Loud rumbles thundered. A few corpses were shattered into pieces, but some corpses managed to force their way past the gigantic stars. The collision between the corpses and the stars caused the stars to crumble continuously. The corpses were so powerful. The giant-level figure was shocked. The corpses actually broke through his attack. If they were so powerful even as corpses, what level were these people at when they were still alive? Most likely, all the cultivators buried in this tower-shaped grave had not been simple beings. Old Ma and the rest also unleashed their divine light of the great path to withstand the incoming corpses. However, the corpses ignored all resistance and continued to press forward. They were lifeless and were not afraid of death, so they kept pushing forward. Many countermeasures set up by the cultivators were destroyed by the terrifying push from the corpses. Yi Futian and his group were not the only ones being attacked. More and more corpses buried in the tower-shaped grave surged out and rushed towards different directions. The number of the attacking corpses was increasing. They were like an army of reapers. It was a frightening scene to behold. Buzz! Starlight screens appeared all around, with Yi Futian and his group as the center. Ren Huangchen raised his scepter. The surrounding space became his absolute domain. More and more cracks appeared on the tower-shaped grave, and more corpses joined in the attack against the cultivators. However, all of them were blocked outside the screens. None of them could break through Ren Huangchen's defense. Even so, the corpses still slammed themselves relentlessly on the screens, causing the screens to vibrate. At this moment, the sorrowful wail of the black turtle intensified. Yi Futian looked ahead and saw that, from within the grave, beams of divine halo shone. The halos transformed into a unique rhythm. The rhythm was permeated with immense sadness. Boom! A loud thud sounded, and another corpse appeared. This corpse was not deformed. He was garbed in blue robes. His hair was actually still jet black in color, untainted by the passing of time. The rhythm surged out from the grave and permeated into the blue-robed corpse. Immediately, the corpse opened its eyes as though it had been awakened. His jet-black hair danced violently in the air. In different directions, a few other corpses that were at the same level as the blue-robed corpse appeared. The pressure emanated by these corpses was enough to make the giant-level figures from various forces feel threatened. Be careful. These corpses were existences that had survived divine tribulations of the Great Path when they were alive. A solemn voice rang, warning all the cultivators to beware of these newly awakened corpses. The capabilities of these corpses were unfathomable. A beam of blue light flashed, and the blue-robed corpse sprang in the direction where Yi Futian and his group were. His speed was shocking. He extended his arms and sent out a palm strike against the starlight screens that materialized from Ren Huangchen's power of the Great Path. The starlight screens shook fiercely upon the impact. Then cracks appeared on the screens. The facial expressions of Ren Huangchen and the rest changed. These corpses were insanely powerful. Since the city on the black turtle's back was in a dilapidated state, the black turtle had most likely wandered around in the void space for a very long time. However, after so many years, not only were the corpses still in good condition, even the clothes that they were wearing also did not decay. Now the corpses moved as though they had been resuscitated. The situation was too bizarre. Rumble. More and more cracks formed on the screens. Ren Huangchen raised his scepter and pointed it forward. With a loud bang, the starlight screens shattered into pieces. The screens were replaced with a gigantic starry divine sword, which charged straight towards the blue-robed corpse. The blue-robed corpse showed no intention of dodging the sword. He actually used his bare hand to grab the sword. The momentum of the divine sword caused the corpse to be pushed backward. However, at the same time, the divine sword was also disintegrating bit by bit. Yi Futian stood motionlessly at his spot. He was carefully listening. There was a rhythm playing. He heard a rhythmic sound coming out from the grave, affecting the corpses. It seemed like the corpses were awakened and gained their fighting spirit from the rhythm. Yi Futian listened to the rhythm attentively. It was a vehemently sorrowful rhythm. The wail of the dragon turtle echoed the rhythm. As Yi Futian listened, an intense grief welled up inside of him as well. It was as though he had no control over his feelings. Who is playing this rhythm? Yi Futian wondered as he stared at the grave ahead. What exactly was hidden inside the grave? I need to make a trip. Uncle Ma, please keep me company, Yi Futian said out loud all of a sudden. Old Ma looked at him and nodded. A dazzling light shone on Yi Futian. Then, he actually entered into a dark fissure formed from the space tearing. Old Ma followed closely behind him. Yi Futian wanted to make a trip to the Divine Prefecture. He wanted to return to the village and bring the body of Xinjia the Great to this ruin. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2295, The Way Home. Chapter 2295. The way home. After Yi Futian and Old Ma left, the other cultivators remained to hold off the attacks of the ancient corpses of the Great Path. These corpses, which could attack on their own accord, seemed to have minds of their own. Their combat ability was also astonishing. It was as though they were real cultivators who had experienced the divine tribulations of the Great Path. Ren Huangchen from Ziwei Imperial Palace, and the top figures from various forces, could not do anything to ward off these ancient corpses. After all, The corpses were already dead, and they were unaffected by the cultivators' attacks. On the other hand, the cultivators' lives were in danger as soon as they received a blow from these powerful corpses. Moreover, the rhythm coming from the grave intensified as time passed. This caused the ancient corpses to attack even more violently. In the end, all the cultivators were forced to retreat. After the cultivators got off the back of the dragon turtle, the ancient corpses ceased their pursuit. Then, the corpses returned to the grave, and the rhythm also dissipated. Everything on the dragon turtle's back gradually returned to normal. It was as though nothing had happened. The cultivators stood in the void space around the dragon turtle. The terrifying storms blasted out from the fissures. The cultivators were enveloped by the divine light of the great path, so that they could resist the churning storms. At the same time, they traveled in space and followed the dragon turtle closely. The cultivators and the dragon turtle advanced at the same speed in the same direction. "What should we do?" asked a cultivator from a top force in the dark world. The people around him looked at each other in search of answers. Some of them fixed their gazes on the ancient city, on top of the dragon turtle's back. A light was still faintly twinkling amidst the dilapidated grave. A top figure analyzed the situation and said, "The power that controls the ancient corpses comes from within the grave. Moreover, the might is at the level of a great emperor. Since there is an emperor's might, and it can direct the rhythm, we can more or less be certain that there is a will of the great emperor lingering in this ruin. The will of the great emperor has kept the dragon turtle moving in the void for all these years. It can also utilize the rhythm to activate the ancient corpses." The rest of the cultivators nodded in agreement when they heard his words. "We have to assemble a bigger team of cultivators." All of them felt that the current situation was tricky. Many top forces from the divine prefecture, the dark world, and the empty divine realm were here. Yet, with their collective effort, they still couldn't seize control of this dragon turtle, which carried an ancient ruin on its back. Since they couldn't explore the ruin by themselves, they could only request stronger backup. Frightening rumbles thundered. The dragon turtle continued to advance in a specific direction. It traveled across space and left behind terrifying cracks. The storms churned continually. All the cultivators from various forces were eager to try their luck. Some of them made their second attempt to explore the ruin. However, they were encircled, attacked by the ancient corpses and forced to retreat. Therefore, a bizarre scene took place in the void space. The dragon turtle, which was carrying a ruined city, or more precisely a grave, on its back, advanced in space. It caused a huge commotion as it moved. Many cultivators from various top forces, including quite a few giant-level figures, followed behind it. The scene was shocking. This scene continued for a period of time. The dragon turtle carrying the ruined city slowly approached the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. It was about to enter the region where the 3,000 realms of the Great Path were. Fortunately, the 3,000 realms of the Great Path were widely dispersed. There was a large distance between each realm. The area of the void space in between realms was far larger than the cumulative area of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Therefore, this grievous dragon turtle might not necessarily collide with the realms. If, unfortunately, a collision between the dragon turtle and a realm really occurred, the realm would most likely be penetrated by the terrifying momentum of this beast. Lord Taixian and the rest could only pray in their hearts as they observed the movement of the dragon turtle. They were not capable enough to stop it from advancing. On the other side, Yi Futian and Old Ma managed to return to the divine prefecture with the help of the divine item given to Yi Futian by Princess Donghuang. However, they landed in the Donghua domain. They traversed space and moved towards the Shangqing domain. Their destination was Four Corner Village. Old Ma naturally understood why Yi Futian wanted to come back. After experiencing the terror of the ancient corpses on the dragon turtle's back, both of them understood that the cultivators from various forces would most likely be helpless. Under such circumstances, Yi Futian couldn't be involved in the fight. With his abilities, he was not even qualified to participate in the battle. Hence, he had to make a trip to the village and retrieve the sacred remains of Shenjia, the great emperor. Only then did Yi Futian stand a chance to fight against the other parties for the treasures in the ruin. Old Ma was proficient in the power of space, hence their speed was fast. They rushed to the Shangqing domain from the Donghua domain. Then they arrived at the Four-Corner Continent. The return of Yi Futian and Old Ma stirred up quite a commotion in Four-Corner Village. Little Ling, Fang Xiyuan, and the other two youngsters gathered around them. However, Yi Futian couldn't afford to waste much time here. He went straight to the private school in search of the master. In the private school, Master was meditating with his eyes closed. Yi Futian approached him and bowed slightly. He greeted Master. "Are you here to retrieve the sacred remains?" Master asked Yi Futian as he opened his eyes. He seemed to know Yi Futian's intention for coming here. "Yes." Yi Futian nodded. "Did something occur in the original realm?" Master inquired. Since Yi Futian came from the original realm to retrieve the corpse of Xinjia the Great Emperor, it was obvious that something had happened there, and that Yi Futian required the power of the sacred remains. Yi Futian described the situation to Master, saying, "In a void space of the original realm, a dragon turtle appears. It carries a ruined city on its back. There is a grave in the city, which contains many ancient corpses of the Great Path. A rhythm is played from within the grave, and it can control the ancient corpses. It is menacing. The combat ability of the ancient corpses is also very shocking. A dragon turtle carrying a ruined city, and a grave at that," Master mumbled. "It is searching for its way home. Unfortunately, the way home is too far. It will most likely never be able to make it back. Does Master know what's going on?" Yi Futian revealed a strange expression. It was looking for its way home. The battle which led to the collapse of the heavenly path in the past was also known as the end of the gods. Countless top cultivators perished, and many gods fell. Even Great Emperor Ziwei had to rely on sealing his will in the segment to preserve it. The longer Yi Futian came in contact with Master, the more he felt that Master was mysterious. Master was most likely a figure from the ancient past. Perhaps he knew what happened in the past and the secrets of the dragon turtle and the grave. "I know," admitted Master while nodding his head. "Go and see for yourself." As Master said this, a body appeared beside Yi Futian. It was the body of Xinjia the Great Emperor. The divine light of the Great Path circled around the body, and it emanated an unfathomable aura. It was akin to a real deity. Yi Futian looked at it. Then, he moved towards it, and streaks of divine light flowed from Yi Futian into the body of Xinjia the Great Emperor. The two divine lights formed some resonance, and Yi Futian pocketed the corpse of Xinjia the Great Emperor. "Go. I will give you a ride, so that you don't have to travel all the way back again," Master instructed. After that, a gentle force enveloped Yi Futian and Old Ma. They were hurled outwards. It seemed like Master wanted to send them back to the original realm. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2296, Stop. Chapter 2296. Stop. In the original realm, where the 3,000 realms of the Great Path were, there was a terrifying disturbance in the sky above the boundary of the heavenly mandate realm. In the heavens above, menacing dark fissures seemed to appear. The cultivators of the heavenly mandate realm immediately glanced over towards the direction of the commotion. They saw an extremely astonishing sight. A gigantic dragon turtle bearing an ancient ruined city was traversing across the sky. As it did so, it was descending, seemingly approaching the boundary of the heavenly mandate realm. The terrifying dark fissure seemed to consume everything. What was that? Countless cultivators of the heavenly mandate realm witnessed this awe-inspiring scene. They were greatly affected as this scene was too shocking. Not only were they looking at the gigantic dragon turtle, but they were also glancing at the cultivators around it. Each of these cultivators was a top figure. They were actually following the dragon turtle, which was carrying an ancient ruined city on its back as it advanced. What did they want? Lord Taishian is also among them, someone exclaimed. Many people spotted Lord Taishian and the others, The top cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy were also there. It was not just them. The cultivators from various top forces were all there. "Retreat!" someone cried out. The dragon turtle was advancing at a frightening speed, descending towards them. No one knew where it would land. It was likely that it would crash on the outskirts of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Many cultivators were already beginning to retreat. In the sky, Lord Taishian looked towards the direction where the dragon turtle was moving. He could not help but frown when he traced its trajectory. It was highly likely that it would collide with the boundary of the Heavenly Mandate realm. However, they had no means of preventing it from doing so. Although more and more cultivators were rushing over to where they were still severely outnumbered. They could not block the dragon turtle's path. They had attempted to do so many times along the way. "It's getting close," someone shouted. The cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate realm dispersed. The dragon turtle descended in an imposing manner. It appeared like an evil demon that wanted to consume everything. With an ancient city on its back, it descended upon the lands on the outskirts of the Heavenly Mandate realm and crashed right into it. Rumble! The dragon turtle crashed into the boundary of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Terrifying fissures appeared on the ground, followed by earth and debris scattering everywhere. The frightening jet-black fissures consumed everything. It was as though the heavens and earth were collapsing. At that moment, the entire Heavenly Mandate realm felt a tremor. The closer they were to this place, the more intense the tremor felt. There were even frightening cracks that propagated far into the distance. It seemed as though the land was being ripped apart. It was a catastrophe. Down below, the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy unleashed the divine light of the Great Path, sweeping away a group who had not managed to get away, thereby protecting them. The dragon turtle's advance was not hindered too greatly. It continued downwards, penetrating the Heavenly Mandate realm. The lands along the boundary were immediately reduced to rubble and later consumed by the jet-black fissures. After the dragon turtle left, Lord Taishian and the others left the people they had saved at a safe location before continuing to pursue it. The cultivators bowed slightly at Lord Taishian and the others. Emotions welled up in them for having survived a disaster. The scene just now was too terrifying. They lowered their heads and peered down below. Their hearts still trembled intensely beyond their control. What exactly was that thing? There seemed to be a grave on the back of the dragon turtle. After piercing through the Heavenly Mandate realm, the dragon turtle had completely entered the region of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. It was still advancing further. This dragon turtle, which had wandered in the vast void for countless years, had finally arrived in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, where there were cultivators. "We must stop it," said Lord Taishian. It was too dangerous to allow this to continue. No one knew which continent the dragon turtle would crash into. Once it did, the continent would be reduced to rubble. The dragon turtle was still moving forward. More cultivators rushed over to where they were. Many powerful existences had survived divine tribulations of the Great Path. They were also chasing after the dragon turtle. Above the Heavenly Mandate realm, two silhouettes suddenly appeared. They were Futian and Old Ma. The two of them glanced down and saw the shattered lands of the boundary of the Heavenly Mandate realm, as well as the terrifying fissures of the Great Path. "Let's go." The two of them stepped forward and pursued the terrifying aura. Futian frowned. As expected, the thing he was worried about had occurred. The dragon turtle had actually descended upon the lands of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. It had even shattered the boundary of the Heavenly Mandate realm and was moving further into the region. Divine light of space shone. Old Ma's speed was extremely fast as he traversed the space and chased after the aura. As they made their way over, Futian and Old Ma saw a broken continent. Countless rubble was floating in the space. More than half of the entire continent was consumed by dark fissures. When Futian saw this scene, and his heart was extremely heavy, the worst possible outcome had occurred. The dragon turtle had collided with the continent and shattered it. Finally, they sensed the terrifying aura ahead and knew that they were close. The two of them continued forward and finally saw the dragon turtle. Right then, in the space surrounding where the dragon turtle was traversing, many top cultivators appeared. Most of them were existences who had survived divine tribulations of the Great Path. The cultivators from the Divine Prefecture, the Dark World, and the Empty Divine Realm were all present. They seemed to have reached an agreement and were preparing to join forces to stop the dragon turtle from advancing. It was not because the other forces pitted the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, but rather that allowing the dragon turtle to continue moving would make it more difficult to claim the ruined city on its back. It was best if they could trap it here and stop it in its tracks. In front of the dragon turtle, a heavenly bulwark seemed to appear. Tens of thousands of runes lit up. It was extremely dazzling. The dragon turtle crashed right into the bulwark. Cracks appeared on its surface. However, the next moment, a gate of world suppression appeared there. It was like an ancient door of the gods that could suppress everything in this world. Wuxia Watchtower also blocked the dragon turtle's path. Millet Emperor had appeared. Rumble. Terrifying rumbling sounds caused the space to tremble violently. Even the gate of world suppression was penetrated, and Wuxia Watchtower was knocked backward. However, the advance of the dragon turtle was beginning to weaken. After that, other cultivators appeared one by one. Various incredibly powerful figures had arrived. Emperor Shi and Run Huangchen also attacked. This time, the cultivators of the three major realms were actually exceptionally united in their efforts to stop the dragon turtle. The dragon turtle began to slow down. It seemed sluggish. It let out a sorrowful cry. Followed by rumbling sounds, the dragon turtle finally came to a stop. In the void, it seemed as though an ancient ruined city had appeared out of thin air. From within the grave, the rhythm could be heard again. It contained an intense sorrow within it. The grave moved once again. The ancient corpses on it also floated up with it. It seemed as though the actions of the crowd had incurred the wrath of the grave. It appeared that there was indeed life within it. Futian stared straight ahead. He faintly sensed that this dragon turtle had not stopped because the others had blocked its path, but rather the power that drove it had caused it to stop. Otherwise, it would most likely still have been difficult for the various top cultivators to prevent the dragon turtle from advancing. Master said that the dragon turtle was seeking its way home. Could it be that the owner of the grave was making his way home? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2297. The Great Emperor is alive? Chapter 2297. The Great Emperor is alive? After the dragon turtle came to a stop, at last, no more new dark fissures appeared. Everything gradually returned to being peaceful. However, in the void space, there was a ruined city floating about. In the void space around it, the cultivators stood staring at the ruined city. Ancient corpses emerged from the grave one by one as the rhythm played. It seemed to be controlling the movement of the ancient corpses. A few of the powerful ancient corpses were still around, standing in different locations. They stared wide-eyed at the surrounding cultivators. It was as though they themselves were cultivators who were still alive. These ancient corpses released extremely powerful auras. As the rhythm spread outwards, the ancient corpses began to move. They immediately pounced towards the surrounding cultivators. The power of each ancient corpse was comparable to that of a giant-level figure. "We must destroy them right away," someone said. These ancient corpses were originally lifeless. They could only be stopped by destroying them completely. The various cultivators nodded their heads in agreement. This time, the cultivators from three major realms were gathered around here. All of them unleashed auras of the Great Path at the same time. For a moment, the power of the Great Path around them rampaged, and was extremely frightening. As Yi Futian, who was standing in the distance and did not attack, watched the situation over here. Even he could sense the suffocating pressure sweeping outwards. There was a gigantic tower that came crashing down while unleashing destructive golden divine halos, flattening and shattering everything. Sword rivers annihilated everything within the space. Long dark spears traversed across the darkness. Divine halos of space tore the space apart. In an instant, The attacks of the various cultivators that burst forth simultaneously blocked out the sky. The entire ruined city was blanketed within these attacks. None of the ancient corpses could escape the range of these attacks. The rampaging power of these attacks came crashing down like an apocalypse might. Huge rumbling noises could be heard. In an instant, the ancient corpses that were charging towards the cultivators were mostly destroyed. They were buried within the ruined city. They could not charge out even if they wanted to. Jet black fissures appeared in the chaotic space, not settling for a long while. Once everything returned to normal, many ancient corpses had already disappeared, having been completely annihilated. Only a few powerful ancient corpses remained standing there. The chaotic, destructive power did not manage to destroy them. These ancient corpses were powerful existences that could stand against figures at the level of Renhuang Chun. In the grave, a light grew brighter and brighter. The rhythm also grew louder and louder. A loud bang could be heard as the grave burst open. A corpse stood on top of the grave. From within it, the formless rhythm surged non-stop into the corpse. It caused the corpse to be circled by halos of the great path. As the corpse stood there, a formless pressure swept out. It caused the various cultivators to stand around the ruined city, to sense a terrifying pressure acting on them. Their gazes gradually became serious. The rhythm contained a unique power. It surged into the corpse that had appeared, and caused the aura of the corpse to grow more and more powerful. Divine light actually circled around it, and the lifeless corpse seemed to be reborn into a body that was truly alive. Its hair was black as ink, and its skin became smoother. Its features became more defined, as though it had truly been resurrected. It was not just its features. From its body, halos of rhythm were released that circled around it, and enveloped the other ancient corpses. The other corpses immediately lit up with beams of light. When the surrounding cultivators saw this scene, their expressions turned serious. Was this the Corpse King? It seemed that with him as the center, the surrounding corpses all came back to life. Where was this rhythm coming from? Why did it contain such power? It is a long-lost divine melody. I think I know who is buried within this grave, claimed someone. The gazes of the crowd immediately shifted towards the speaker. It was Lord Luo from Outer Violet Heaven, a master of a divine melody. This rhythm was a long-lost divine melody. The hearts of the various cultivators stirred. Divine melodies were created by great emperors. Only the melodies created by deity-like existences, such as great emperors, were qualified to be called divine melodies. The 9 great divine melodies were all passed down from ancient times. That meant to say that, as expected, the master in the grave of the ruined city, on the dragon turtle's back, was an ancient great emperor. Many people revealed contemplative looks. Some people seemed to have realized this. Their expressions changed instantly. Many people did not know about the mystery behind the divine melody. They could not help but ask, which divine melody is it? Who is buried within the grave? It is the divine requiem, said Lord Luo. It is the most sorrowful divine melody among the 9 great divine melodies. It was composed by a prominent figure in ancient times, Shinin the Great. Once the divine requiem is played, the world will be cast into sorrow. It can control the emotions of others, and they will not be able to break free of its grasp. No wonder the cry of the dragon turtle was so sorrowful before this. Shinin the Great. The hearts of the various cultivators trembled. This great emperor was also a figure who made it into the annals of history. In the legends, Shinin the Great was a person who was true to himself. He was obsessed with the way of rhythm his whole life, and cultivated it to its utmost limit. During his time, he was the top master of the way of rhythm. Otherwise, how could his divine requiem claim to cast the world into sorrow when played? How can it control these ancient corpses then? Someone asked. These ancient corpses seem to be controlled by the rhythm. Lord Luo explained. It is because this is not the true divine requiem. Shinin the Great was the top master of rhythm of his era. He was terrifyingly proficient in musical techniques. It is not unthinkable that he can control ancient corpses. I am more curious as to whether the grave contains more than just the will of Shinin the Great. His expression was stern. The surrounding cultivators also revealed strange expressions. They clearly understood what he meant by this. If only his will were present in the grave. How was it that it could activate the rhythm and control these corpses? It also seemed to be doing so as it pleased. However, if it was not just the will of the great emperor in the grave, what else was buried there? It was an astonishing line of thought. Lord Luo bowed towards the grave and said, "Great Emperor, we stumbled upon this place in the void, so we wanted to explore it. We had no intention of disturbing you." When the surrounding cultivators heard Lord Luo's words, they were shocked. Lord Luo believed that the great emperor was still alive? How was this possible? If a great emperor from eons ago was still alive, why hadn't he appeared in the world sooner? Why did the dragon turtle need to wander in the void? If the great emperor was still alive, he could have killed them all with a flick of his hand. Why did he need to act in such a roundabout fashion? "Lord Luo, I believe you are overthinking things," someone said. The other cultivators clearly did not believe this legendary figure from the ancient era had survived until the present day. If that were the case, it would be too astonishing. Lord Luo continued, "Everyone, you seem to have forgotten the mysterious master of Four Corner Village. Nothing is impossible. After the collapse of the heavenly path, it was claimed that the gods had perished. However, can gods truly perish so easily? It might be that they exist in a different form in the world now." His words caused many people to frown. They seemed to have recalled something. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Everyone ignored Lord Luo's words. There was movement in the grave aside from the rhythm playing. It surged into the various ancient corpses, especially the Corpse King. The Corpse King seemed to have come alive. A terrifying storm of rhythm emanated from his body and spread outward quickly. Everyone ignored Lord Luo's words. There was movement in the grave aside from the rhythm playing. It surged into the various ancient corpses, especially the Corpse King. The Corpse King seemed to have come alive. A terrifying storm of rhythm emanated from his body and spread outward quickly. In an instant, the storm of rhythm enveloped the entire space. Everyone was within the domain of this rhythm. The rhythm was formless, yet its effect could be felt by all the cultivators present. The cultivators examined their surroundings. They could sense the omnipresent rhythm. Their eardrums vibrated with the rhythm. They formed some resonance with the music. It was as though their spiritual souls were invaded by it. Extreme grief welled up inside of them. They could feel despair and sorrow from deep within their souls. Beware! Many people reminded each other to be careful. The intense emotion mixed in the rhythm could directly affect the cultivators' souls, causing them to feel miserable. Sorrow, despair, helplessness, and the futility of struggling propagated along with the rhythm. These intense emotions directly impacted the cultivators, causing their mindfulness of the path to be swayed. It also lowered their combat abilities. Countless images that were related to their traumas surged in their minds. The traumas that each cultivator recalled were all memories that impacted their hearts and their souls the most. The negativity that they felt was magnified continuously, causing them to dwell in misery. It's the divine requiem. Lord Luo's emotions were similarly affected. At the same time, he was shocked by the might of the rhythm. This was the terror of the divine requiem. It would not attack the cultivators directly, yet it could perturb their mindfulness of the path and cause them to break down. Indirectly, it could destroy the cultivators. Humanity would dwell in sorrow as soon as the divine requiem was played. One could imagine how frightening this divine melody was. All the cultivators present had their own stories to tell. They had experienced countless tribulations to reach the peak of the Runhuang Plain. They had fortified their mindfulness of the path, and they were good at suppressing their emotions. Some of them even deserted all their feelings to achieve greater attainment in their way. Nevertheless, their experiences remained as memories in their minds. The divine requiem had the magical power to evoke those memories hidden in their minds. It would then amplify the negativity felt by the cultivators, causing them to wallow endlessly in sadness. It would destroy the will of a person. Even top figures would be affected by this. As to how powerful the effect would be, It depended on who was playing the divine requiem. It was the same for Yi Futian. He thought that his mindfulness of the path and his conviction were firm. However, right now his memories that had long been hidden were once again evoked. The scenes resurfaced in his mind and leaped into his consciousness. It was as though he had returned to the days of his youth. He saw his teacher and grandmaster. He even experienced the sorrow and despair he had felt back then once again. It was as though he had returned to the time when he was back at Sage Hall and experienced the death of Jiyu all over. The intense sorrow seemed to be magnified, causing grief from deep within his soul to emerge. It felt as though he had lost his ability to fight completely. This sensation was too frightening. He never imagined that the rhythm actually possessed such astonishing power. It could subdue its opponents without a fight, destroying its enemies through their emotions. This won't do. A voice cried out from within Yi Futian. He had to break free, otherwise he would be in grave danger. Setting aside the fact that the ancient corpses had not attacked, even if they didn't, his mind would gradually be worn out if he continued to be immersed in this endless sorrow until he was eventually crippled. Was the divine melody played by a true top figure actually this powerful? Who was playing it now? At that moment, he actually came to the same preposterous conclusion as Lord Luo. Could it be that the great emperor was actually still alive? Who else could play such a divine melody? Rumble. At that moment, the great path resonated on Yi Futian's figure. His body became a divine body of the great path. The endless divine light of the great path circled around him. Musical notes burst forth from inside his body. These dancing musical notes intertwined to form a melody and countered the attack of the divine requiem. However, right then the ancient corpses began to move. This time, they no longer attacked frantically like before. Instead, they were following the movements of the Corpse King. The figure of the Corpse King floated up into the air. He stood at the center of the storm of rhythm. He was circled by the endless storm. The other ancient corpses seemed to follow him and appeared around his figure. The Corpse King appeared like a truly extraordinary cultivator. He raised a finger, and immediately, the storm of rhythm in the vast space moved with his finger. Countless sword wheels instantly appeared in the sky. These sword wheels merged with the storm of rhythm. The humming of swords seemed to become a sorrowful wail. The hum of swords and the melody reverberated throughout the space. The other ancient corpses also did the same. The vast space was immediately enveloped by the sorrowful wail of swords. It was difficult for those caught in it to break free from its grasp. Buzz! The Corpse King lifted his finger and pointed at the cultivators. Immediately, myriads of humming swords appeared in the vast space. Each and every one of the swords was tainted with inexhaustible sadness. All the swords slashed towards the cultivators at the same time. The swords seemed to be capable of destroying one's spiritual soul. They were akin to the swords of great sorrow. A formless power was hidden within the swords as they charged towards the cultivators. All the top figures in the region were targeted by the swords. Be careful, warned Ren Huangchun as his figure appeared beside Yi Futian. Starlight illuminated and enveloped their surroundings. Yi Futian and the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy were shielded under the starlight screen. Rumble. Endless sword will descended and blasted on the starlight screen. The entire screen was covered with invading sword will. Yi Futian and his group could clearly see how the sword will landed on the screen and caused it to shake violently. Cracks appeared on the screen. The terrifying melody permeated through the screen and affected the will of everyone. In other directions, cultivators from various top forces were also fighting hard to defend against the sword will. Even the giant-level figures felt threatened by the ferocious attack. Some people retreated frantically, while some people sought protection from tribulation-level cultivators. Right at this moment, the ancient corpses dispersed. They moved simultaneously as they charged towards the cultivators in various directions. The Corpse King remained where he was. His gaze was devoid of emotion. He was a dead man after all. Naturally, he wouldn't have any feelings. The Corpse King glanced in one direction. His gaze landed on a giant-level figure from the Divine Prefecture. Then, he raised his arm and sent out a palm strike from across the space. A gigantic palm immediately appeared in the heavens and earth. Even the gigantic palm was ringing with a sorrowful wail. This palm of great sorrow flew towards the cultivator. The cultivator retreated frenziedly. The sorrowful wail seemed to be omnipresent. It seeped into his mind and disturbed his emotions, causing him not to be able to focus and retaliate with his full force. At this moment, the palm of great sorrow slammed into him. With a loud bang, his spiritual soul was shattered. His body plummeted from the sky. He was killed instantly with a palm strike. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2299, The Great Emperor? Chapter 2299, The Great Emperor? Stand back, a voice called out. Various top cultivators backed down. Run Huangchun, who was protecting the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, also said, "Stand back for now. This corpse king is terrifying." A giant-level figure had been killed with one blow so easily. The corpse king's combat ability was astonishing. Cultivators who had not survived a divine tribulation would find it difficult to take a stand against the corpse king. Even tribulation-level cultivators were having a hard time fighting him. "It is already too late," said Emperor Shi. A sorrowful wail could be heard all around them. They were all trapped in this domain of rhythm. The storm of rhythm that surrounded the vast space merged with the hum of swords and became a mournful wail of swords. It blocked out the sky and enveloped all the cultivators. In the ruined city, rhythm still floated out nonstop from within the grave towards the figure of the corpse king. There were certainly secrets hidden within the grave. It was also highly likely that it was the secret to the divine requiem. Could it truly be as Lord Luo had speculated, and that the great emperor existed in a different form in the world now? If not, how could such a powerful rhythm be created? Seal off your senses. Do not let the rhythm affect you, someone reminded loudly. The grievous wails persisted. It directly affected the spiritual souls of the cultivators. The thick sense of sorrow pierced straight through to the hearts of the cultivators. If this continued, they would succumb to endless despair under the rhythm, and would not be able to break free from its grasp. Many giant-level figures were already severely affected, and had lost their will to fight. "Elder, may I trouble you to guard my body?" Yi Futian asked. As he said this, his spiritual soul left his body, and entered into the sacred remains of Xinjia the Great Emperor. With his current plane in this domain, Yi Futian could not withstand a single blow to his body. Right then, a suffocating pressure appeared in the heavens and the earth. The sorrowful, wailing sword will in the sky trembled. There was a loud rumble. Someone immediately shattered the domain and entered the area. Many people raised their heads and looked at the person who had arrived. Their hearts were trembling. Before this, cultivators from the various top forces had already informed their clans or forces to send over super cultivators who had survived the second divine tribulation. It seemed that someone had arrived. The corpse king raised his head and swept a glance at the other party. He then raised a finger, and immediately cold sword will howled as it charged towards the other party. A frightening pattern of the great path appeared before the person who had arrived, blocking out the sky. When the sorrowful sword will stabbed forward, it actually sank straight into the pattern. Another extremely powerful aura descended and appeared above. Clearly, the second super cultivator had arrived. How could the relic of a great emperor appearing in the void realm not cause a commotion? Even the top super cultivators could not resist coming over to take a look to see whether there was a great emperor-level existence here. After a short while, in the surrounding void, many super cultivators appeared. These people were definitely rare sights to behold. They stood at the very top, high above everyone else. After the great emperor, they were the strongest existences. They were the backbone of their forces and controlled superpowers. An example was Taichu Saint Emperor. He was already a cultivator at the top of the pyramid and was the ruler of the Taichu domain. For cultivators of this level, their greatest obsession was the great emperor plane. However, it was almost impossible for them to reach this plane. Ever since the collapse of the heavenly path, how many great emperors had there been? No matter how talented these cultivators were, the great emperor plane was always beyond their reach. After they arrived, they stared at these ancient corpses. Had these corpses been given life? Where was the rhythm coming from? As they pondered on this, they immediately stepped forward toward the grave. They wanted to see what secrets were hidden within. Were the remains of Shinin the Great buried within this ruined city, on the back of a dragon turtle? The ancient corpses around the grave charged towards the cultivators who were approaching them. Swordwill howled sorrowfully and rained down. However, the people who had arrived this time were powerful existences. A cultivator from the dark world lifted a finger, and the ancient corpse charging towards him became a pile of shriveled bones. It disappeared gradually and turned to ash. Another cultivator slashed out with his own sword will. The space was instantly shattered, and everything in its path was annihilated. Even the space before him was shredded into pieces, let alone the corpses. They were immediately reduced to nothing. Another cultivator merely waved his hand, and the ancient corpses were disintegrated. This was the absolute suppression of planes. Once one reached this plane, the difference between each plane was insurmountable. Cultivators who survived the second divine tribulation could not be compared with those who only survived the first. The latter could be suppressed with a mere wave of a hand by the former. In an instant, most of the ancient corpses were destroyed. Only the corpse king was left standing there. He was staring at the cultivators who were approaching him with his deep gaze. The corpse king might have also been in existence who survived the second divine tribulation. Alas, he was but a corpse now. He couldn't wield the same level of combat ability as he did when he was still alive. He had been weakened greatly. It was most likely impossible for him to deal with these super cultivators by just activating the rhythm. Sorry for the offense. One of the cultivators apologized. He then lifted his hand and pointed a finger forwards. The space in front of him instantly collapsed and shattered. A frightening black hole appeared. This space could not withstand an attack of a cultivator of this level. A simple attack would cause the great path to collapse. The other cultivators also attacked at the same time, aiming their attacks at the corpse king. Astonishing powers swept towards the figure of the corpse king simultaneously. The crowd could predict what the outcome would be. The corpse king would certainly be decimated by these attacks. At this moment, a menacing divine light surged from within the grave. The light transformed into the storm of rhythm, which enveloped the corpse king. Many attacks landed at the same time, flooding the entire space where the corpse king was. However, after the destructive storm dissipated, the cultivators noticed that the corpse king was still standing tall, unharmed by the attacks. An even more frightening aura permeated from his body. The light from within the grave surged into his body frenziedly. The surrounding cultivators frowned. The corpse king was not eradicated even when faced with such attacks from the crowd. Furthermore, they could vaguely sense that the aura of the corpse king was undergoing metamorphosis. It was becoming stronger. An unparalleled might emanated from the corpse king, causing the cultivators to feel an overbearing pressure. It was the might of a great emperor. As expected, it was the aura of a great emperor. Could it be that the will of the great emperor was really hidden in the grave? Moreover, the user could control this might so freely. The thing hidden in the grave would most likely not just be the will of the great emperor. The hearts of all the cultivators quivered. Even those who had experienced the second divine tribulation found it hard to remain calm at this moment. Could it be that Shinin the Great was really still alive? More and more cultivators found themselves believing the words of Lord Luo. Perhaps he was right. The great emperor might still be alive in another form. He might have even retained his consciousness. If that was the case, then the thing hidden in the grave was. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.